Hello, my friends. It's 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, which means it is day 3 of the Made for This challenge. And this is a big day. Day 3 is a big day. So if you're here, come on in, say hi. I am so proud of you if you are here and you are continuing to show up. Beginnings, they can be easy, but the middle is where what separates the women from the girls. You know what I'm saying? Samantha, again, this woman always here first, early, often, ready to just do this thing. Hi, everybody. Hi. Come on in. Today is a big day. Today is, we're going to go deeper. We're going to go deeper. It's sort of like we start this challenge out. We sort of walk together into the water, into the ocean, and now we're at a place where we can go a little bit deeper together. And I really thank you for trusting me, for showing up, for giving me the honor of getting to play a tiny little part in your journey this week. It has been so fulfilling, so much powerful energy. Do you feel it? I woke up today, my whole body was like, woof, like I could just feel the amount of energy that is surging from these conversations, from the connections, from the homework that you're doing. I'm just really in awe. It's fantastic and it's rare in this world. Most of us, we tend to take the path that's easiest, right? The path of least resistance. And what I'm really so sick and tired of on everyone's behalf, on my own as well, is we can get so comfortable playing a mediocre game. We can get so comfortable accepting less than what we really need and deserve. And it's not okay. As I said before, the stakes are really high. Like, this is not our practice life. And we don't want to just achieve things. We don't want to just like check off a box and like, okay, we have the husband, the mortgage. It's like you want fulfillment, right? You want fulfillment. And I heard the late Ken Robinson speak a couple of years ago. He was in LA and he's amazing. He did his entire work on creativity, and he talked about how it's so often that people are in their 40s or 50s, and at some point they're walking from their car to the office and they push the button for the elevator and they just ask this question like, how did I get here? Like, what is this? And I feel like we've just been sold a bunch of lies. Like, being a grown-up means taking a job you don't like, and that means you're being responsible and practical. And I mean, how on earth is that practical? How on earth is it practical to give up the best time, the best years of your life, busy building someone else's dream, busy doing something where you're like, I'm not here. This is not me being in alignment with myself, right? So this week we've been trying to sort of like pull things out and look at what's here. And by the way, let me just say, if anything I've said or if anything I do say like strikes you as being true, it's because you knew that already. You knew that already. And I think that what happens on the journey is that we just come home to ourselves, right? If something feels right and it clicks, it's like, that's because you come into this world completely whole, completely whole. I want you to think about when you were created. I keep saying this, I want you to really get it. When you were made, all you were was life force, energy, compassion, passion, brilliance, right? And there's a tremendous amount that is, it's so pristine, right? And then things start to come in, and what we know is that from the ages of 0 to 7, we're in this like theta state. It's almost equivalent with hypnosis, they found out. So we realize that we get sort of some programming in those days, and we then, I think becoming who we are is really about unbecoming what we're not, right? And so that's the process, and I'm just reminding you of that. So today we're going to do a little bit of deeper work. We're going to go deeper into what am I made for? What is the thing that I've been called to do? And we're going to unpack a little bit about that. And we're also going to look at how do I take the first 3 steps, right? Like, how do I begin to start a side hustle, or how do I begin to grow my business? I think oftentimes 80% of what we're doing is actually not bringing results. And so it's just like in your closet, you know, they say that you actually wear 20% of your clothing 80% of the time. It's the same thing with business. Like you're going to find that you get 80% of your results from 20% of the things that you do. And so we can kind of cut out a lot of the fat, because I know for myself, I've built a business being a mom, having 3 kids. Like what I want to teach you to do is for people who want to just get right to it. You know, it doesn't need to be overthought. It's just about really knowing what is essential and focusing on that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I want to do another exercise. I want to ask you first, before we do this exercise, how many of you have a sense based on your life experience, what you've been doing up until this challenge, or based on the first couple days of this challenge, how many of you, type a 1 in the chat if you're like, I think I know what my thing is, and type a 2 if you're still like, I'm not really clear. Like, I'm not really clear what my thing is. I'm just curious. So type a 1 in the chat if you really feel a sense of clarity around like, I think I got that light bulb moment. I think I know what I want to do. And type a 2 in the chat if you're not absolutely certain. A 1 if you know, and a 2 if you're not sure yet. Let me see it in the chat so that I can just get a little bit of a sense of where we're at. So Connie says she's at a 2. Okay, that's totally understandable. Hi, Pamela. Pamela's a 1. Melissa on my team, she's a 1. Maddie's a 1. We talked about Maddie yesterday in my examples of my amazing students. Hi, Lauren. Lauren's a 1. Awesome. Okay, so there's a lot of 1s in this group. A lot of you are like, I know what I want to do, sister. Like, let's just dive in. So there's a lot of 1s. Okay, great. Okay, cool. So I want to see, just for a second, you know me, I like to not settle, right? I want to always shake it up a little. So I want to ask you this question, which is whether you know or you don't know. The question I want you to ask yourself is, what would make my life more epic? What would make your life more epic? What does that look like for you? Okay. And I want you to have a little fun with this. You're going to make a list. Okay. You're going to make a list of your 5. Okay. So this could be, even if you think you know, it could be 5 versions of it. Okay. But I want you to make a list of 5 dream scenarios, career-wise. Okay. So whether you're a 1 or a 2, let's have some fun with this. Let's just sort of get out of the box. Okay. Let's go back into beginner's mind. Let's just put ourselves in a state of curiosity and inquiry, like what is in there. Make a list, take out a sheet of paper, 1 through 5, and just without overthinking the how. Okay, forget it. Pretend that the how is dialed in, okay? Because that's not your job. We talked about that yesterday. That's God's job. That's the universe's job. But what is the desire? Okay, 5 dream lives that would make your life epic. 5 possibilities, 5 dream lives. So you might say, number 1, open a bed and breakfast. Number 2, travel writer. Number 3, I'd like to trade places with Tony Robbins. Number 4, I want to open a meditation center. Number 5, I want to own a bakery in the south of France. I don't know what you're going to say, but I want you to just have some fun and write down 5 epic dream lives. Career-wise, what would that look like? Take a second, have a little fun with this. Okay. So what I want you to do is you're going to write those out. And then, and it's actually the faster the better, right? Because we really want to like allow our subconscious to speak. And when we sort of just go with what comes up, there's a lot of wisdom in there. So you wrote these 5 dream lives. And now what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes for a second, and I want you to feel into it. Okay. I want you to feel into it. I want you to picture doing each of those things 1 at a time. Okay. Give each one a few seconds and breathe into it and close your eyes. And I want you to listen to your body, because the body keeps the real score. The body doesn't lie. So I want you to breathe into each one, and I want you to just check in and just ask your greatest wisdom in here, which one feels, from a physical standpoint, which one feels the most expansive? Which one feels the most expansive? And which one Or which ones feel a little bit more constricted? And it might be super subtle. I just want you to close your eyes and just feel in like, okay, here I am picturing myself doing this. How does it feel? How does it feel in my body? Which one feels the most expansive in your chest? And which one feels a little bit more constricted? And do that with each one. And then circle the one that feels the most expansive. Which one feels the most expansive? And then if you feel like sharing, I'd love you to put it in the chat and tell me which one felt the most expansive to you. Which one felt the most expansive to you? So I see that you guys are doing this work. I love it. Which one feels the most expansive? And I want to go into that for a minute. So I'm curious. So Rosemary says coach. Brianna says author. Susan says columnist in a faith magazine. Oh, Priscilla says I have an art store. That just feels so good. I love that. Painter, illustrator. Beautiful. Such beautiful dreams. The world needs these dreams, my friends. You know, in one of my favorite movies, Dead Poet Society, Robin Williams, who was so brilliant, his character says to the boys, he says, you know, boys, he says, math and science, these are such noble pursuits, and they keep us living, you know, they help us create medicine and technology. He said, but art and poetry, he said, that's what we live for, right? That's what we live for. And the reason we came, my sense is the reason that you're here is because you don't just want to be here. You want fulfillment, right? You really want that meaning and that purpose. And all these dreams, like Marcia just said, having a vineyard and being a healer, someone just said, and traveling and an artist in Sweden or Denmark and tiny house community manager. I mean, these are such beautiful dreams, helping people overcome trauma, of hypnotherapy. I mean, yes. I want you to understand when I say listen in to which one feels the most expansive, I really want you to trust the wisdom of that divine download. Really want you to trust it. When I talked to Julia Cameron, we were talking about the Artist Way, I mentioned the other day, and I said to her, you're so spiritual. She's so spiritual. And in her book, she talks a lot about 12-step programs, which she's done. And she talks a lot about God very unabashedly. And I said, how do you feel that spirituality and creativity kind of go together? And she said, you can't separate the two. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, when you surrender to the creative process, she said, there's no denying the synchronicity that starts to line up for you in your life. And I think that's why we all love making something from nothing. I think it feels the closest we feel to being like God, right? Or like the creative force, whatever you want to call it. Like it's an amazing feeling. And the other thing that we've learned from research is that people feel most joyful when they're in a state of spontaneity. So that's really interesting to understand, because we've been talking this week about how often we want to protect ourselves from failure, from rejection, from being messy. But then we really deny ourselves the truest pleasure. Because if you think back on your life, I venture to say that the moments that were most magical were moments you weren't trying to control. They were moments where you allowed something to happen, and it took you by surprise, and you were spontaneous, and you felt sort of like you let go. And for me, I just posted this today in my Instagram, but my close friends know I've been going through a process of sort of finding the next level for myself. You know, over the last 5 years, I built a multi-7-figure business, and even though that was so incredibly epic, especially coming out to LA with like no financial means, and a beat up old Volvo I was driving that was a 1987 Volvo. Like, to be able to make multi seven figures, having lived in an apartment and, single mom, like, yes, it was amazing, truly, truly awesome. But I felt as though it required me to sacrifice well-being, that it required me to not have, really a lot of joy, that was sort of the trade-off. And then I met my next sort of ceiling, and I broke through that upper limit, and now my days are much more about the well-being, and then the work is like a highlight. And I want to show you how to really keep expanding your capacity for joy. But what I realized is there is a true current that is always sort of on full blast, and the blessing is there. And I think our job is to allow, right? Is to unhinge all the resistance. And there's a lot of resistance there. And I think the resistance comes from limiting beliefs. And I wanted to show you something. So I just drew this really simply. So basically, I want you to know the way that it works, okay? But essentially, my beliefs create my actions, and my actions create my results. You see that? So my beliefs create my actions, and my actions create my results. And here's the deal. Then whatever results I get, they reaffirm my beliefs, okay? So we know that we look for evidence of whatever we believe is true. So I want to show you that. For example, if I were to say to you, if I were to think a thought like, people who live in LA are superficial, my mind will give me six pieces of evidence that that's true. It'll be like, oh yeah, Housewives of Beverly Hills, Rodeo Drive. I mean, it would just spew out evidence, right? But if I were to say people who live in LA are really spiritual, it'll be like, of course, it's like the vegan capital of the country, and people are really into being good in the environment, and there's a lot of meditation centers. Do you see that? Do you see that? And so we create our own reality. We tell ourselves a story. Now, why is that important? Because we only take action based on our beliefs. So it's kind of like we had a leak in my old house in LA. And luckily it was like a pretty new house, so the builder was able to come fix it. But the first time they came, it was in the kitchen, and they decided to just like patch up this cabinet. And then the leak came from another part of the kitchen, and they patched that up. And then the leak came from another part of the kitchen until they realized it was actually coming from upstairs. There was a balcony that wasn't properly sealed, and so it was coming all the way down into the kitchen, and one way or the other, it kept coming through until they sealed the balcony. So you can take, as much, time as you want to set your goals. Like, I'm going to crush it. Here's what I'm doing. If you don't go back to the beliefs, right? That's the operating system. That's what's pushing the buttons. That's what's allowing or not allowing you to take certain action, because you're not stupid. Let me give you an example. How many of you, tell me in the chat, how many of you have ever flown across country? Have you ever gotten on a plane and flown across country? Just type a 1 in the chat if you've done that. Have you ever gotten on a plane and flown across country? Right. So many of us have done that many, many times. Now, why is that? Well, even though there's a risk that the plane could crash, it's not really what we believe, is it? Like we've kind of like looked at the evidence and we're like, no, I'm going to get there. So I'm going to actually pack the clothes I need to go to Boston, and I'm going to be in Boston. It's going to be great. And thank God, 99.999% of the time, it's the best way to travel. You get to Boston, Chicago, whatever, you're good, right? Now, how many of you buy a lottery ticket every week? Every week, without fail, you go, you buy a lottery ticket. How many of you do that every single week without fail? How many of you do that? Type a 1 if you do that every single week. Type a 2 if you do not do that every single week. You do not do that. So you most of you are saying, no, I don't do that. Some of you are saying yes, but a lot of you are saying no. Some of you are even saying I've never done that. Not never, not even one time. Okay, so I think I've done it once in my life, like bought a scratch off one time. Why? Because if I really believed that by going to 7-Eleven and buying a lottery ticket every week, I would win $32 million, of course I would do it. But I don't. I don't believe that, so I don't take action. I don't believe that, so I don't take action. And so we talked about this the other day, and I said people think they have a business problem, they really have a courage problem, and that really is the case. Because fundamentally, if you believe you're not enough, why on earth would you take action? Fundamentally, if you believe that you will experience tremendous rejection, which will feel very similar to the way you felt at 6 when your dad walked out and never came back, why on earth would you take action, right? So I have friends who are perpetually, forever and ever, they're always single, and they could say, well, there's no, I don't have the time, or they could make up all the excuses in the world. But we know that that's not really what's going on. We know that there's a reason, there's a really good reason, there's a belief that keeps them from taking that action. And if we looked at it under a microscope, we might come to find out that the reason that person doesn't do that is because at the end of the day, they believe that marriage means, let's say, you lose yourself. So why would they want to get close to being in a committed relationship if they're going to lose themselves? Or marriage means heartbreak. Love is painful. I mean, these are real beliefs that people walk around with, right? So what's the story you tell yourself about doing your work in this world? I want to know if you could take a second, and you don't have to share these because I know it's personal and some of this is hard to even tell ourselves. But thoughts are not facts. Thoughts are not facts. And just because you think it does not make it true. Just because you think it does not make it true. But what might be one of those thoughts? Remember I said the other day that we now know from brain science that we have about 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of them are repetitive. And most of them are negative. So your subconscious just straight up believes whatever you tell it, right? Whatever you tell it. I remember my mom, I'm Jewish. When I was little, my mom used to say that, when Hitler was saying to people, Jews are this, like after a while, people just believe it because they hear it so often. She said, my mom told me when I was 7, she's like, it's kind of like if I said to you, ketchup is evil. After a while, you just hate ketchup, right? Like your subconscious will just believe whatever you tell it, right? So what are the beliefs that are not serving you? And if you're really honest with yourself, right? And I said, you could just fully show up for this week. Maybe there's something here, maybe not, but maybe there's something here for you. And you're already here, so you may as well get everything you can out of it. But what might be one of those beliefs that's not serving you? Is it possibly something like, I'm not good enough? Or is it something like, it's not possible, right? Or money doesn't grow on trees? Or what might be one of those beliefs? And you could keep it to yourself or you can share it. But I'm just curious if we can kind of bring those things to light, right? My mindfulness teacher years ago used to say that just the awareness of something is almost 90% of the healing. She said, imagine if you are going into your house, but you've been there. This is your house. So you've gone into that house a million times, and it's late and you forgot to leave a light on, and you have a cat, and the cat's water bowl is right by the door. So you walk in, you close the door, you don't walk into the water bowl, you don't stub your toe on the couch because you're aware of it. You know it's there, right? But if you gave your keys to your friend and she had never been to your house and you forgot to leave a light on, would she possibly walk right into the couch, and would she possibly step into the cat's water bowl? She most likely would, because she doesn't have the awareness that those things are there. So just being aware and just without any judgment, actually having tremendous compassion for yourself, right? Having tremendous compassion is going to help you so much more than you even recognize. And I want you to have compassion because, see, we've all been through so much. Honest to God, we've been through so much. I think the reason I love doing the work I do is because I've been on the planet long enough to know that everyone has literally had their heart broken so many times. And so I'm really in awe of the human condition. I can't believe that we continue to just march on. It's really amazing to me that we do that. I mean, like cats and dogs, I don't know that they're thinking about their mortality. I don't know that they even know, okay, I have a limited amount of time on this earth. How much am I going to do? Oh, this person just, yeah, they feel loss, but the amount of loss that we feel and the cruelty, that way that humans can be cruel to each other, it doesn't really exist in the animal kingdom. It's not the same. And so the fact that we can have a capacity to keep going through so much heartache, and the reason we should have compassion for ourselves is because, you see, a lot of these thoughts kept you safe, right? Like when I was growing up, there was so much in my house growing up that was really painful. So my best strategy was to make myself small, to not make any waves, and to please everybody else. So I became super codependent. And by the way, I thought that codependency was about being needy, but I found out it's literally, it can be a million different things, but part of it is just wanting everybody to feel okay. So you'll do whatever you can to be a pretzel so that everyone else is okay. So a lot of the things that we believe, they helped us survive, right? They helped us survive. So I think we should have a lot of compassion for that. So I'm just going to look and see, because I see that you're typing. I want to see some of what you're saying. If any of you have been brave enough, I'm not good at something right away, I shouldn't do it. So that's a limiting belief. If I'm not good at something right away, I shouldn't do it. Okay. Jill said, people saying you have to have it all together to be a coach. And that's really fascinating too. There's a practice, we talked about the Japanese word ikigai, but there's another beautiful practice in Japan where what they do is when an object is broken, like a vase, when they put it back together, they actually emboss the areas where they put it back together in gold, because they believe that the brokenness of the vase actually makes it more valuable. So for someone to say you have to have it all together to be a coach, I don't think they realize that it's the broken parts of you that make you actually relatable and make you successful. In fact, it turns out that when people are scrolling all day long, you know what it turns out that they're looking for, what the research shows? We think they're looking to be informed or entertained or impressed, right? They're not. They're looking to feel less alone. We said the other day we live in an empathy deficit. The best thing that we actually could do is be our messy, imperfect selves. And one of the things I want to invite you to do every day is to release the shame of needing to be perfect and to invite all the aspects of you to come here. I said to you, the first thing I said to you on day one is you are welcome here. The parts of you that are fierce and brave, and the parts of you that are broken, and the parts of you that self-sabotage, it's all welcome here, because I have those parts of me. And that's okay, right? That's okay. And it's amazing about limiting beliefs, because how does it make you feel when you think those thoughts? How does it make you feel to think, in order to do this, I have to have it all together? Or I'm not good enough. How does it make you feel? I'm not good enough. I don't even know where that came from. Somebody else said, I'm growing up, I was told I was lazy, right? So how does that make you feel, right? And if you say to yourself, you're lazy, your mind will give you all the evidence that you're lazy. You'll be like, of course you're lazy. Remember that time you didn't complete that thing? Remember the other day when you couldn't get out of bed? But if you say to yourself, I can do hard things, I'm resilient, I'm so resourceful, your mind will give you evidence of that, no doubt. I remember going to therapy years ago, and I have this story, like my best friends know this, my story, because of my relationship with my dad and watching my parents' marriage, is always like, my husband doesn't see me, my husband doesn't see me, my husband doesn't see me. And my husband works so hard. I think, he's a lawyer, and actually now he's retired, which is fun, but I I don't think he works harder at anything than trying to make me feel seen, but that's my story. So I'll find evidence of that all day long. And I remember a therapist saying to me, every single morning, I want you to wake up and write down, my husband sees me, my husband loves me, and write down evidence of all the ways that you know that that's true. And I'm like, oh my God, when I look for the evidence, I find it, right? Like he got up extra early to make sure that like I could, he could be with the kids and I could go take a walk, or he left me a cup of tea and he wrote me a note, and you really focus on it. You're like, wow, right? So everything is going to take what we believe and then the action that comes of that. Like we do need to show up and be a participant. We need to play full out. And like we said, what makes people successful is that resiliency, that grit, right? Angela Duckworth did that whole TED Talk. She wrote a book about grit. Now, what's interesting is that she found in the research that what correlates most with grit is actually this, it's beliefs. And the thing that actually determines how much grit you're going to have is optimism, right? Is cultivating optimism, meaning let's keep going. We got this. Let's not focus on, the negative. Let's keep moving forward. Rejection is just redirection. Everything in my life is happening for me, not to me. Like changing that script. And what's interesting is you can always turn things around. Like the people who take my programs, the people that I've coached, I've been so blessed to coach thousands and thousands of people at this point. And one of the beliefs I hear from people is, why would someone want to pay me to do this? Like, I'm just beginning, right? Like I was working with one woman, she was a wedding photographer, and she was going to be charging people. And we were talking about what she should charge and what it should look like. And by the way, we can talk about pricing later, but pricing is not a hard one because there's already a market for everything, for candles, for kombucha, for classes. There's a market, so we can figure out what the market is. But anyway, she was going to be charging someone, and she was so scared to charge, right? And she was so scared because her limiting belief is, I'm not worthy of this. I'm not enough. And we flipped it around. Okay. We flipped it around. And how do we do that? I said to her, what's the advantage of this bride? What's the advantage for her to hire you versus someone who has all the experience in the world, right? Like you're just starting. What is actually an advantage for her to hire you? Does anyone want to give me an answer to that? What do you think we came up with? Because her limiting belief was, I can't charge anyone. I can't even do this business. There are people who run circles around me. There are people who have so much more experience. So why would I do this? Why would anyone hire me? I'm just starting out. I'm not doing it. And I said, let's completely turn it around. What's the advantage of the bride to hire you to be the wedding photographer when you're just starting? Why is that actually a good thing? Okay, so Nicole said a fresh look and new skills, and Debbie said fresh perspectives. So more dedication, focus, enthusiasm, creativity. Oh my God, these are so good. So yeah, what we came up with is, who's going to be more collaborative? You or the person who's been doing this for years? They've got their system down. They say, look, I'll be there for 3 hours. I got my second shooter over here. We're going to do these 4-stage photos. Then we're going to do this little wrap up by the waterfall. Then we're done. Who's more collaborative, you or that other person? Also, who's more invested in you getting the results? Who's more invested in the bride having the best possible experience? The new person, right? She's going to work extra hard. She's going to be there overtime. She's probably going to throw in a million other things because she cares so much. Also, what about the quality, right? Let's say you hire the person whose name, is all around town. She's done thousands of weddings. Do you think she shows up at the wedding? No, at this point, she's got 4 photographers who work for her. And can you really control the quality, right, at that point? So we turned it around, and I said, you should be showing up like it's your moral obligation, because you know. You can never control if you're the most talented, the prettiest, the skinniest, never. But you can be in charge of how hard you're going to work. You can go to bed that night and say, nobody cared more than me. Nobody cared more than me, right? And people, what do people want more than anything else? They want to feel seen. They want an experience that another human being actually cares, right? So being new, again, is that a limiting belief? No. And could we flip it around if it was the other way? Who's going to hire me? I'm 62 years old. What does that even mean? Oh my God. So you're better for the job because not only are you able to now be the person they're hiring, but you have all these other years of experience and you're super tuned in and you already had a wedding and you had your daughter's wedding and you can really, I mean, we really have to look at what we believe because it really gets in the way. And we must take that massive action, right? And so I want to show you something because I said to you the other day that successful people have an action-taking bias, right? And it's not about being perfect. It's just about doing stuff like this. And some of you heard my story, and sometimes people gloss right over my story because once somebody's already successful, it's really easy to compare our behind-the-scenes messiness to somebody's highlight reel and go, see, look at all the wins. See how perfect? It's like, no. Let's go back, right? So friends of mine, some of my friends are on here who've known me for like 15 years. They've watched the evolution, right? They've seen me fall on my face. So I'm constantly just taking more at bats. I'm just constantly trying stuff. So the one that you know about, the one failure, right? If you can call it that, was I got a record deal. I got dropped, right? Like they didn't want me. I actually then got a second record deal at Atlantic, which I usually don't tell that part of the story because it's like enough to tell one part, but I got dropped from them too, okay? And then I got those day jobs and all that stuff. And then I started doing well with licensing music. But once I was licensing my music, I had a couple other big dreams pop up. One of them was I met with the Jim Henson Company, and I had a meeting with Lisa Henson, who's his daughter, and Hallie Stanford, who's president of Henson. And it was this amazing, awesome meeting, and we all connected, and they loved my music, and they said, we're going to create a whole television show with you. And we shot a pilot, and we worked on it for 2 years, and we went to every network, Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, PBS, Sprout, all the networks. And in the end, every single network was a hard pass. It was a no. And the day after we had our last meeting, we were holding out hope. I got a bouquet of flowers, and there was a knock at the door, and I opened the door, and there was just a card, and it said one word. It said, believe. And it was from Hallie. She's president of Henson. And I called her. I knew it was from her. And she said, Kath, I don't know where, I don't know how, but there is something inside of you that was meant to touch other people, and you're gonna find the key that fits the right door. But this isn't it. Or maybe it's just not right now. And I was devastated because I didn't know that this podcast was on the other side of the rainbow. I didn't know that I would one day write a book. I didn't know that one day I would, I told you that story about hearing Martha Beck speaking at that Oprah event. What's really crazy is, how your phone gives you images and says like, today, this day last year, this day 3 years ago, and it'll show you a picture of where you were. So as I'm sitting down to interview Martha Beck for my podcast, I forgot to tell you this part of the story, a picture comes up on my phone, and it was literally 10 years to the day of when I had just walked out of hearing her speak, and I was so inspired. And there I was a decade later, sitting down having her on my show. And then she wrote the blurb for the back of my book. Isn't that just crazy? But I didn't know that at the time. So the Henson thing, that didn't work. The record label, that didn't work. And yeah, I was licensing music, but I want you to understand, even though I was making money licensing music, I wasn't in a position where I had a platform. I was writing music, and you'd hear the music. People would say, oh my God, I just heard you on that Hasbro commercial. Oh my God, I heard you in that episode of Pretty Little Liars or Younger or Criminal Minds. And I'd be like, cool, but it would be like back in the back of the episode. It wasn't like I got to just stand up and pour into people. And I hadn't quite figured that out. And then another thing happened where I got rejected, which was that I started helping songwriters write, get their big break in music. And I wrote a book all about writing music for film and TV. And I wrote the entire book, and I sent it to every single publisher and every single lit agent who deals with that kind of thing. And everybody said no. Not one person was interested in it. And it's interesting because cut to a few years later, I start a podcast sitting on the floor of my closet in my old house. And I put the episode out, and Apple features it. And within 2 episodes, I get an email from this woman who says, I work at Simon & Schuster. Your podcast is amazing. It needs to be a book. And I was like, what? I don't get it, right? So trusting the synchronicity of things. And again, we get all too comfortable in a rut that's settling for something that's just like, it's mediocre. And I think all of it comes from this like sort of divine download when we sort of just get messy and follow the whisper. So before, when I said which one of those lives makes you feel the most expansive, it's because what do you think lights up most in the brain? Do you think it's love? Do you think it's hate? Do you think it's fear? Do you think it's compassion? What emotion, what state of mind do you think lights up strongest in the brain when they do an fMRI and they put people in different simulations? What do you think lights up strongest in the brain? What lights up strongest in the brain, it's not love, it's not hate, it's enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is like when you're all in, right? And that's why people will say to me, I don't know what it is, but I'm just so all in. I don't even care if you were selling, I don't care what you were doing. You're so enthusiastic, right? And I've had that experience. I was sitting next to a guy at my friend had a 10-year wedding anniversary party, and I was sitting next to a guy I didn't know, and he's obsessed. I mean it. This is a true story. He's obsessed with Bruce Springsteen. Now, I don't love or hate Bruce Springsteen. I can kind of take him or leave him. I don't know. He's fine. He's fine. But never like super into it. I know like 3 of his songs. This guy is obsessed with him. So I'm sitting next to him, and it was the most fun dinner because for an hour, he's telling me everything about Bruce Springsteen. He's telling me about all the times he's met him. He's telling me he had a Broadway show, which I didn't know. He's telling me all the details, and I'm hooked. I was all in because he was so enthusiastic about it, right? He was so enthusiastic. So enthusiasm, there's a clue. You know when people say like you're in the flow? The flow is when you're not trying to control it and you just kind of walk toward that whisper, and then the synchronicity has a way of showing up. However, it requires you to be brave and take action. And in order, like you just heard me say, in order for something to click, sometimes we got to get up to bat more than one time. In order for you to ride that bike down the street, you might need to get on and fall down and get on and fall down more than 6 times, right? And that's why it goes back to the grit. And so I tried many keys to open many doors. And finally, the podcast, it was like click, like ding, ding, ding. This is it. This is where you're supposed to be, right? So massive, massive action, which goes back to beliefs. And we got to turn those beliefs around so that we can take those actions. So early on, I just want you to see this, like I'm super scrappy, right? So I remember when I was writing music for film and TV, and I was working really hard to figure out what they might want. So I would watch these shows to get a sense of the themes and the characters so I could actually write something that they needed. Remember I said business is empathy. So instead of just writing my own music from 4 years ago and shoving it into their, oh, here, listen. It was like, no, let me go from, let me begin with the end in mind. What do you want? What can I make that you want? But once I had these songs and I knew that they were actually the songs they wanted because I had done that research, I was frustrated because there's a lot of gatekeepers and it's really hard to get through. So I was like, I gotta get in there. I gotta make those connections. And so I was willing to get up to bat and I was willing to get scrappy. And so one of the things I did early on, I made this PDF. Okay, I'm gonna show it to you. I made this PDF. This is from 2010. Okay. I sat down at my computer. Look, it's not even, I opened up Pages. As you can see, this isn't even like formatted correctly. I didn't know what I was doing, but I had this idea, mochas and music. I got a little picture of a Starbucks Frappuccino and a picture of a cartoon girl playing guitar. And then I wrote like step 1, email me your Starbucks order. Step 2, on a point in day and time, I'll show up with your favorite coffee and give you some music. And step 3, you'll leave you'll continue your workday happy and caffeinated. And I made this little thing and I sent this out. And I sent this in an email to like, I don't know, 70 or 80 music supervisors at different networks, at different ad agencies. And a lot of people didn't even respond. And then there was like a group of like 20 or so people who were like, no thanks, or don't ever send me something like that. And I was like, all right. I kid you not, 28 people wrote back and said, sure, or okay, or can you bring something for my assistant too? And I was like, absolutely. So I bring the coffee. I'm like going around town, driving to these offices. And would you believe that, I wish I had it right here, but I don't have it because we're still in the process of moving and it's on the moving truck. But a year later, I'm sitting down with Billboard magazine, and I mentioned this to you. I said to the guy, why is this newsworthy? Anyway, in the article, he had to do a lot of fact checking and reach out to a lot of music people and find out, how successful was I. And in that article, he said, last year, Kathy Heller had 20 28 people used her music on 28 shows and 28 ads. Or 28 was the total number. 28 was the number, right? 28 music licenses. And I said to him, oh my God, you just helped me realize something. I said, every person who I brought coffee to worked with me. Everyone. Everyone. Now, some of them liked the music I wrote, and some of them would say, like, this doesn't work for me, but I really like you, and now we made a relationship, so I'm going to give you a chance. Can you write something about, like, today's the day, or summer? Can you write something about, like, friendship? And I was like, sure. And that turned into over $300,000 of work, right? So having the courage to put yourself out there, to think out of the box. Now, I want to also talk a little bit about how we build business, right? I want to do a couple things today. And how we build business is essentially, it's backwards from the way that we think we build business. So I keep saying that business is radical empathy, and it is, okay? It is, because oftentimes the reason we have all these limiting beliefs, a lot of times people don't create their business because they believe that in order for them to be successful, they have to go write a whole amazing book and put it out. They have to design the entire coffee shop and get the brick and mortar and open the doors. They have to design the app and hire all the programmers and then put the app in the app store. It's like, no, it doesn't ever work that way. It's so much easier than that. We create business with the person who we're making it for in mind. So the way that we build a business is we get to constantly test and go back to the person. It's like sewing a dress for somebody, right? And instead of just like making a line of dresses, right? Like a whole season of like, I'm making like fall wear, spring wear. It's like, no. Before you even do that, how about like a prototype? Like see if this person even wants it, right? And work from that place. So it's kind of like you're making dinner for a friend, and instead of guessing, you find out, is this person vegan? Are they kosher? Do they like wine? Do they like cheese? Like, are they dairy free? It's so much easier to hit the bullseye when you work in tandem. And so part of the big reason I think I was able to get the work and start that career is the same reason my podcasts work. When people say to me, why is your podcast so successful? How do you have almost 20 million downloads in 3.5 years? Nobody does that. I'm like, because I start and end every single recording with the same question. What is the pain point of my audience? What is my audience's pain point? This is for them. This is not about me. This is about them. So I'm constantly asking my audience, what do you want to hear about? What questions do you have? Where are you stuck? And then that's the question I ask Rob Lowe. That's the question I'm asking the people that I'm talking to. So I'm thinking constantly about my person. And that's what happened at those 28 meetings. Instead of walking in and saying, hey, I'm Kathy, let me try to impress you. Let me try to push and control and tell you everything about me. It was like, let me shut up, right? And listen and care and ask you as much as I can ask you so I can figure out how to serve you. And I think that one of the big ways that we figure out what are we meant to do with our life is it's not always about us. Right? And one of the things I wanted you to do for homework today is I want you to think about what your friends already come to you for. Like, I'd love for you to ask 2 or 3 people who know you and say, what do you think of me for? What do you already come to me for? How do I show up for you already? Because they might say, oh, you're the person I always ask for advice in my relationship. Or you're the person when I go to a new city and I need some fun things to do, I get your recommendations. Or you're the person who, if I ever feel, scared, I want you with me when I have to do such and such. That's really important to know. That's really important to know, because I think that the way that we usually go about it is we say to our children, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? What's your passion? What's your dream? Our job is to be of service, right? And what I realized about my journey is that I started out wanting this record deal, right? Because I wanted to be seen. I wanted to get all this recognition. And I wound up doing something that I just always did. I always was a radical encourager, right? When I was growing up in my house, I was the peacemaker. I was the one who helped my mom turn it around when she was feeling depressed, when she was suicidal. I was the one boy, did I learn. I had like the best training ground to become exactly what I am right now. Right? In fact, I had Byron Katie on my podcast, who is an incredibly spiritually awakened giant. She's friends with Oprah and Eckhart Tolle, and she's just amazing. And she has a book called Loving What Is, and she has a process called The Work, which is about asking yourself 4 questions for any thought that just doesn't serve you, which is it true? Is it absolutely true? How do you feel when you think it? And what's the turnaround? Which is, it's an amazing process. I highly recommend it. But I had her on my podcast, and, you know, I kind of forget who I'm talking to. And so we're talking about how like we create our own reality and how we can just be so free if we stop believing all this garbage in our mind. And I say to her, but what about when you're a kid and you go through all this stuff? And I said to her, like in my house, you know, my parents were always fighting and there was a lot of violence and arguing, and I was in the middle and I was their therapist and blah, 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 blah. And they made me their therapist is what I said. They made me. And she said, did they make you? Did they like hold you up at gunpoint and say like, you need to be our therapist? And I said, no. And she said, so what did happen? I said, well, they would like kind of unload all their stuff and blah, 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 blah. And she says to me, and your soul looked around and your choice was, I'm going to be a peacemaker here. She said, maybe, just maybe, that's a gift that you have, right? Maybe that's a gift that you have. And you know what, you guys, I fought that gift for so long because I was always that person in high school and college. All my friends would vent and I was like running from it. Like, oh, I'm never going to do that with my life. And now I've accepted that I actually feel the most in service when I do this work. Like at this point, I really feel blessed to say I don't even need to do this. Like the show, you'll learn, you know, how content works. And once you have a certain amount of sponsors and that, like you're good once you have 20 million downloads of something. But I do this because I can't not do it. I feel the most me when I do the work I came to the world to do. So I want you to think about, again, the Ikigai is not just what do I love and what am I great at? It's what does the world need from me? Where do I fit? Where can I serve? Because it's actually really selfish. We feel the best when we are serving, when we are contributing. And so I want you to ask a couple friends, like, what's there? Is there a clue there? Is there something they already come to you for? And can you combine it? Right? Like, I feel like this is so cool because the podcast allows me to have fun with something. There's a little bit of a platform involved, right? And so it lights me up. And I like this combination of doing it this way rather than, let's say, getting a degree and being a therapist. Like, this feels like a lot more aligned, right? Because I wanted to do something creative and I feel like I get to do that. So there's definitely a way for you to figure this out. I know because you wouldn't be here if it wasn't the case. Okay. So I want you to think about what some of those beliefs are, because we can't take that action. If I would have believed like, oh my God, if I send this email with this Mochas and Music thing, I'm going to be a burden. People are going to be, you know, they're going to hate me. Then of course I never would have sent that email. My friend Bob Goff, I mentioned the other day, he was quoting this movie, We Bought a Zoo. And he said, you know what, Kathy? He said, all it takes is 20 seconds of insane courage. 20 seconds of insane courage will change your whole life. 20 seconds of courage, text that person what you meant to text them. Send that email, publish that podcast, right? 20 seconds of insane courage. And we can all muster that. We maybe can't muster it for, you know, a year or 15 months in a row, but you can muster 20 seconds of courage. You can. And a lot of this goes back to, what are those beliefs, right? How is it serving us? And I guess the question I want to ask you is, if you did go ahead before and you wrote down some of those beliefs, who would you be without that thought? Take a second right now. Whatever you wrote before, who would you be without that thought? Tell me in the chat. Who would you be without that thought? I'm not ready. I'm not worth it. It's not possible. I'm lazy. Who would you be without that thought? Write it down. unstoppable, free. I love that word. A lot more successful. I would be you for real. I love it. Well, no, it'd be even cooler because you'd be you, right? Which is something that the world doesn't have, is getting to have you. So that's awesome. I would be my highest self, free and doing the work I came here to do. Amen. The most confident person in the room. Yes. Yes. And a lot of times, I said this about myself, a lot of times, unfortunately, we believe that playing small is actually what the world wants from us. I used to think that, like, if I were to be big, like if I were to win, someone else has to lose, right? It's so not true. It's just so not true. And we were talking yesterday about like how we overestimate what's possible. Did you hear the numbers? Like I said, it would take 50 people paying you $50 a week for you to make this much money. And like how quickly all that adds up to like $1,000, $6,000, $9,000 a month. Like we were talking about real numbers yesterday. Remember, I was like showing you there's so much to go around, right? So you winning, you having a podcast, you having a platform, you making $1 million, what does that take away from somebody else? Nothing. It only adds, right? Because then you rise and all those other people rise too. So truly, when you think about who am I to do this? Who am I to do this? It's the opposite, right? Like you taking care of your own inner stuff and showing up and playing full out, it reverberates. It starts to resonate. And then other people start to move into resonance with you. So really, maybe you can ask yourself from a selfless perspective, who does the world need you to be for the world around you to rise up? Who do your kids need you to be? Who do your friends need you to be? Who does your community need you to be? And where do you feel that in your body? Like when you feel free and unstoppable and lit, are you here or are you here? And when you're here and you're in this place of thinking the thoughts that feel good and taking that bold action, how does that change your corner of the world? How would that change your relationship? How would that change your health? How would that change the way you interact with the people around you? And what would that maybe do for them? So maybe the most selfish thing we do is holding on like hell to these limiting beliefs and playing small. And maybe it's just gotten so old and you're just so done. You're just so done. Who feels like they're done with that? Type a 1 if you're like, I think I'm done. No more. I want you to do another thing for homework. I'm giving you lots of homework because we're on day 3 and I'm like, we got 2 more days. I want to get more in with you guys. I want you to write a letter to yourself from 80-year-old you. You at 80. You know, at the beginning of the week, we talked about you at 7, right? I want you to go to the other side. I want you to write a letter to yourself from the 80-year-old you. And take a second right now and ask her what she has to say. And you can finish the letter later, but start that letter. Dear Kathy, dear Maddie, dear Amy, dear Lisa, have her write you this letter, 80-year-old you. What's the first thing she has to tell you? Take a second. What does she have to tell you? Liz said, oh my gosh, that made me automatically tear up. That's how I feel whenever I do that assignment. What does she have to say? Kathy's in the chat. She said, dear Kathy, I'm proud of you. I bet she is. I bet she really, really is. Dear Bridget, in your late 30s, you found courage and it mattered. Oh, these are so beautiful. 80-year-old me would say you are so much more amazing than you know. She would tell me I was always good enough. Dear Teresa, do your dreams now and keep listening to Kathy. Rebecca, I'm so proud of the business you started in 2020. You totally changed your life. Darling, follow the path that has been calling your name. These are going to make me cry. Dear Sarah, I'm proud of you for never having given up. Dear Katie, you've always had a kind heart and tried to do your best. Guys, do you know what it feels like that I get sent to be here in this moment with you and that you're here with me? It's such an unbelievable responsibility, but it's such a gift. So thank you for letting me in. This is so powerful. I told you at the beginning of today that we're going to go deep today, and I really admire your courage, and I'm really just in awe. What a moving experience. You have no idea what you're giving back to me right now by being fully with me right now. Thank you. I want you to have a baby bit of an experience of what we do inside the program, and that I'm trying to give you as much of it as I can, but I want you to get even more of it. And one of the things that we do inside the program is we put people in accountability groups, and obviously I come on Zoom calls every week, and we do coaching and implementation sessions. And what I always say about my program is it's not a to-do list, it's a to-done list. Like by the end of the program, it's like, you will do this thing. Like, this is not an online course where you watch videos. Like, I am there. Like, I am there with you. But one of the things we do is we put people in accountability pods, and they're with each other through the 12 weeks. I would love it if you guys experience that a little bit today and tomorrow. And the way that you could do that is reach out to somebody in the chat and decide that maybe you're going to just you could talk to each other just on Facebook Messenger. You could call each other on the phone. You can talk to each other on Zoom. You could even text back and forth. But I think it would be really beautiful if everybody agreed to be very respectful and confidential. And maybe you just choose the name of the person who's above you right now in the comments and reach out. For whatever reason, your names were put together right now in this moment. And maybe you can share with that person, and they can share with you with just full curiosity and compassion. You could share the letter. You could finish this letter, and you could read this letter to each other that you wrote to yourself from 80-year-old you. And you could also share those 5 dream lives and the one that made you feel most expansive. And then if you felt really brave, you could also share maybe one of those limiting beliefs. Because when we have somebody who holds space for us, it's very powerful. And I would love to see if you guys can do that a little bit. And so I'm inviting you to do that. Also, remember, you have your mentors here. You each are assigned a mentor. Melissa's here, Delena's here, Angela's here, Emma is here. Beth is here, Leslie's here. They each are assigned a different group of you based on your last name. And so I hope you've already connected with your mentor. They're all here right now, actually, in the chat. You can also do it with them if you feel like that's like a safer feeling, however you want to do it. But it's actually even more special when you reach out to somebody who's just like you going through this process, because you're both then vulnerable and you can both sort of share. Speaking of those of you going through the process, I want to award the winners, those of you who did your homework. I want to give you your prizes. So again, we're going to have homework that's posted again tonight. You can go ahead and do your homework and then come back again tomorrow for day 4, and we'll give away more prizes. So what I told you is that every time we're choosing 3 winners. So we chose 3 at random, those of you who did your homework, but congrats to all of you for doing your homework. And it's going to matter because we're going to do a final big roundup prize for anyone who did the homework the prior days. So if you didn't do the homework the prior days, you might want to catch up, because I'm just giving you a little word to the wise. There's going to be more prizes, more scholarships, more fun things at the end for those of you who did. So it does count for something. In any case, not to mention it counts for the fact that you doing your homework is a good thing for you to do, and it inspires other people around you. And thank you so much for playing full out. So we chose 3 of you, and not only did you each get, will you each be getting a Spiritual Gangster t-shirt. It says follow your soul. It's adorable. And we'll ask you for your size and all of that. But we're also giving away, one of you gets a full scholarship to my program. This was all at random. And 2 of you get a partial scholarship to my program. So that's also Super awesome. And those of you who are like, tell us about it. I know I've gotten some DMs and I've gotten some emails. We'll talk about it. I really want you guys to get a full experience just out of these 5 days. I think you can tell I'm obsessed with doing this work. So I'm here for this, but don't worry. I will make sure that by the end of this week, I make sure that everybody knows about it. Just so you do know, we don't take everybody, we couldn't possibly. I think we have something like 7,000 or 8,000 people signed up for this challenge. We only take a few hundred people in the program because we want to make sure that we can really serve and show up. So we don't have room for everybody. So the doors will close at some point, and then it's first come, first serve. But it's all good because I feel like all of us come together for this week, and I feel like you're getting something out of this, right? I'm getting something out of it too. If you are worried though, or concerned, like, oh no, I want to make sure I get in, you can go check it out. I usually don't do this on day 3, but you can check out what the program's about if you just go to madetodothis.com. The name of the program is Made to Do This. It's a 12-week full on, it's an experience. It's just an experience. Take my word for it. It's my signature program. I put my heart and soul into it. And the promise of the program is that by the end, you will be doing your thing and you'll be making money doing it. And it's pretty darn awesome. I feel very blessed that I had that divine download. That's the thing. And we've been doing it, and it's been serving people so well. And I just hold it very protected with like kid gloves. I just love the program so much. In any case, so let me reward those of you. I just wanted to share that just so that those of you who are getting a scholarship now know what you're getting a scholarship to. So let me tell you who you are. Okay, so this was just at random. This is just, we just give it to God, right? So Lexi Halls, Melissa, I'm sorry if I'm going to mispronounce her name, Melissa Lusau, and Rebecca Kaiser. So all 3 of you are getting a Spiritual Gangster t-shirt. And Melissa, you just got a full scholarship in my program. I hope that you can put it to good use. That is awesome. And Melissa and Rebecca, you're getting a 50% scholarship to the program. So that's so fun and welcome. And yay, I'm so happy that you're going to be in there with us. It's going to be super fun. So I'm going to post the homework really soon, as we do every single time. And then you guys can respond to the homework, and we will have more scholarships given away tomorrow and another really cool prize. The prize tomorrow, I'm kind of obsessed with Aviator Nation. It's another brand, and they have these super soft hoodies. So tomorrow, and again, I'm not sponsored by them, but I just love these things. So I'm giving away Beats headphones and Spiritual Gangster t-shirts, and these are just things that I love. So we're going to give away 3 hoodies tomorrow, as well as more scholarships. So do your homework. Also, it's good homework. It's the homework we talked about today. I think it'll be a beautiful process for you to do it. And I really invite you to reach out to somebody else who's in this chat or somebody else who's in the program and say, like, can we spend 15 minutes and just trade? Can we just share back and forth? And I would encourage you that let the person share without any kind of like crosstalk, like no questions, no answers, just like make the space, just hold space. And you'd be surprised, like being available for 3 minutes to hold space for someone else could be the rarest thing that they've ever had in their life. And they just might need that. They don't need answers. They don't need you to, have any kind of like judgments. Or if you can do that for each other, that would be huge. So I cannot wait to come back tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to go even deeper, and we're going to talk about what are the next steps to starting to build that side hustle, that business. I know a lot of you are like, come on, I want to build that. So I'm doing my best to sort of like just check in with you, and really truly for me, like speaking is just, it's kind of like a meditation of sorts. I kind of just go with whatever's like coming in. It's like a direct download in the moment. But there's a lot I want to get to about actually building the business, and we're going to start talking. We'll talk more about it. We're going to get as much as we can get done in the 5 days, but I want to talk tomorrow about sales and money, because I think that coming off of the limiting belief conversation, coming off of the massive action conversation, at some point you then do have to charge, and that is where everybody goes screeching halt. So I want to talk tomorrow about charging, pricing, money mindset, and making money, and how that actually starts to work, and how you can sell in a way that feels extremely congruent and very on brand and doesn't make you feel anything other than being of service, because that is the only way it works for me. And I think that that's going to work for you too. Thank you for the beautiful comments. I'm not reading all them yet, but I'm going to go back and read them. Your mentors are here if you need something. They are here to support you, to be with you, and we'll be back tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for such a beautiful day. I had the best time with you, and I will see you tomorrow.